You're listening to the Hamingja Podcast, the renaissance of Western spirituality, paganism and animism. We show the Dharmic path and common origin of Norse, Germanic, Vedic, Greco-Roman, Celtic, Balto-Slavic and Persian beliefs. We also draw parallels to the Proto-Indo-European worldview and the ancient beliefs we call the religion with no name. The Hamingja Podcast weaves the threads together to understand where we come from and let our true nature empower us in everyday life. We don't have to turn to the east. The answers were always right here. We are all pagan by instinct. Because of previous bad experiences, Zeus had lost his belief and trust in humans and had serious doubts to their goodness. But he and Hermes had heard of a virtuous old couple in the little town of Tyana, but had little hopes to be proven wrong about humans and their manners. They wanted to make a little test, so disguised as ordinary peasants, worn and weary wayfarers, Zeus and Hermes went to Tyana and started going from door to door in the neighborhood, asking for shelter for the night. As expected, everybody seemed to turn them down and send them off rudely. Until in the last little house, the old couple of Philemon and Baucis unexpectedly welcomed the two travelers and insisted that they rest before their hearth fire. Despite their scarce resources, Philemon and Baucis then unasked served their presumably starving guests fresh fruits, olives, eggs and wine. When the surprised travelers left the next day, the old couple was rewarded for their hospitality by being the only ones saved from a flood that drowned the rest of the country. And their cottage was also turned into a temple as a symbol of divine hospitality and generosity. The couple's wish to die at the same moment was also granted, and they were turned into an oak and a linden, standing next to each other forever. One day an old man was walking down a road, when suddenly he met Odin. Both the old man and Odin were too busy to really stop and talk, but Odin shouted as he passed, "Pleasant journey to you, good man. I shall visit your house this day next week." Astonished that Odin himself had promised to come by for a visit, the old man hurried home and swept his front step, and made his little house as neat and clean as he could, and he cooked a good soup. He drew out his best ale, and he bought some honey to serve on his bread. On the day Odin was to arrive, the old man heard a knock on the door. He rushed to greet Odin, but instead saw a tired soldier trying to get home. The old man was a bit disappointed, but bid the soldier come in and rest a while. He fetched a small bowl of soup, some bread with honey, and a cup of ale for the soldier. The soldier ate and drank and rested for an hour. He then thanked the old man and left. The old man hurried to wash the cup and bowl when he was distracted by a knock on his door. He hurried to welcome Odin, but saw instead a poor traveling beggar. Not wanting to be harsh to the poor man, he bid him enter, and offered him a bit of soup with bread and honey. The beggar ate and departed silently. As he was stepping out the door, the old man quickly poured a bit of ale into an old bottle and gave it to the beggar. The day went on, and the old man wondered when Odin would get there. Another knock at his door brought the old man to see a small boy and a dog. Both were starving, and the old man gave them the last of the soup and thought to himself, "It's really a pity that Odin is so late and that he missed the soup." The boy and the dog both thanked the old man and went on their way. Day became evening, and the old man went to bed. And as he slept, he died. When he woke up, he was in the feasting hall of Valhall. He jumped up and protested loudly, "But I'm not a warrior worthy to take a seat here in the hall of Odin himself." But Odin replied, "Yesterday you welcomed me 3 times into your house. How could I not welcome you into mine?" Welcome to the Hamingja Podcast. Come on in and be my guest here in the 5th episode. Today's topic is another cornerstone of paganism. So pour a glass of mjöd, kikion or soma, and let's dive right into it. I've said before that if I were to explain paganism and Indo-European spirituality with only 2 words, they'd be chartus and the principle of Gosti. Last time was about the cosmic order Chartus, so today will be about Gosti. Nowadays, people often say that they don't like being invited at the restaurant or accepting gifts from friends, because they feel that then they are in debt and obliged to return the favor. We also see how Western families get smaller and smaller, and how people spend less time with the extended family, not inviting people over, and in the long run becoming strangers, isolating themselves from their kin, not to feel that they have to invite them over or go to see them. They don't want to feel bound to any social musts. But the same people also feel naturally that their house should have a dining room and a big living room for, quote, when they have big dinners and for social activities. They feel that they should have a guest room or a sofa bed ready. They definitely expect people to bring nice gifts when their children have their birthday, and they'd never ever go empty-handed to a dinner party. So why is this? Because deep down in our consciousness, we still have the moral compass of our oldest ancestors, the Proto-Indo-Europeans. They saw things completely the other way around. They wanted people to be eternally bound to each other. They wanted to be dependent on each other. They wanted gifts and efforts to be a sign of debt and repayment. They wanted gifts to symbolize that now you owe me one. It was absolutely crucial for survival that the bonds between individuals in the group and between groups in the area were strong and reliable. It was the bonds of hospitality that tied people together and communicated the truth that they weren't separate after all. And the best way to establish relationships was through hospitality, reciprocity, and exchange of gifts. We have seen how the Indo-European worldview and understanding of the universe is the world tree, whose roots and branches are the cosmic order, and the waters that surround it is chaos. The tree grows because we feed it with our actions, intentions, and thoughts. We form our lives within Chartus, and our lives, like all things that happen in the cosmos, are fed into Chartus. The things we do as they pass away, and eventually we ourselves also fall into the waters of chaos. The tree, of course, needs to drink the water to live. And in return, the tree drops its life-giving and ordering seeds and fruits down in the water, and the water transforms it into nutrition and incorporates it back into the tree. The seeds feed the water, or chaos, with all that is beautiful and ordered. It gets our actions, and in the long run also our lives. But all that we have given to chaos returns to cosmos, transformed first in the waters and then by the tree. Like the tree, we have been fed by chaos, and we then feed chaos in turn. There is an exchange occurring at the very heart of the universe. Cosmos gives to chaos, chaos gives to cosmos, and we've come full circle. We've also seen in previous episodes how the divine twins Manu and Yemo create the physical world, with that Manu sacrifices his own brother to the Sky Father. As a gift back, Manu becomes the first priest after initiating sacrifice as the primordial condition for the world order. For sacrificing himself, the brother Yemo is rewarded the throne as the first king of society and warrior class, as social classes emerge from his anatomy. He now also rules in the realm of death. And the Sky Father masters the rules of reciprocity, and as an offering back to mankind, he gives cattle and the knowledge of livestock farming to the hero Trito. When the cattle get stolen by a three-headed serpent, Trito hunts it down, and for this bravery, the storm god gives him a strengthening tonic, and he slays it. For being the first warrior and ensuring the continuity of sacrifice, he is also rewarded the role as the leader of the Kshatriya warrior class. In both these examples, we see the working of the central ideology, that of reciprocity. This is at the root of our relationship with other people and with the gods, and at the nature of the cosmos. Indo-European spirituality doesn't follow religious texts, but rather a fluid understanding of order, disorder, sacrifice, reciprocity, and hospitality. It's so crucial that our Proto-Indo-European ancestors even had a word for it, Gosti, or the Gosti principle. The word means one with whom one has a reciprocal obligation or hospitality. Etymologically, Gosti is actually the root of both guest and host at the same time. And this is exactly what it implies, that relations are created through the exchange of gifts, of receiving and being obliged to reciprocate those gifts, the virtue of generosity. There is an interaction among people and between people and the gods, according to the laws of hospitality. Reality lies in relationships, and those relationships are beautiful only if reciprocal. Reality is about exchange, on every level, from that between chaos and cosmos to that between friends. Society is bound together by an exchange of gifts, by acting as guest on one occasion and as the host on another. Just like Dharma, it designates behaviors necessary for the order of things in the universe, that which all beings must accept and respect to sustain harmony and order in the world. Paganism is about understanding life and the divine by observing nature. And in nature, we of course also see this reciprocity, harmony, and exchange. We see it in the form of balance. The hierosgamos, the Greek term for the holy union between Sky Father and Mother Earth, between masculine and feminine, is the symbol of that balance and of the origin of all life. Everywhere in nature we also see osmosis. Osmosis is a process where, when there's more of a substance on one side of a membrane, the other side automatically takes up what it needs. Like when our cells absorb water through our blood, or when a plant's roots take up water from the soil. A tree absorbs nutrition from the soil, Mother Earth, to be able to live and grow. But its falling leaves and fruits, etc., nourishes Mother Earth back in return. And also in return, the tree gives off oxygen, Sky Father, that is, through photosynthesis, so that all living beings can profit from it. The tree also provides residence and accommodation for insects, birds, and other animals. It also gives shade to those who need it during hot days. For an electric current and a power to arise, we need a balance, a flow between a positive and a negative pole. And we have seen how order feeds chaos and vice versa in a wave motion. If we didn't have these antipoles, there would be no motion. We would have a stalemate and no growth. When non-Dharmic people look at Loki, they see a bad guy, they see sin, they see something close to their devil. But they don't grasp that without this contrast, there would be no motion. There is no good and evil in nature, only counterpoles creating waves. Loki is change. He is forward movement and progression. He is evolution. There's a reason Prometheus means forethinker or foresight, because he knows the future and takes us there through change. Both Loki and Prometheus are the spark that ignites in the meeting and exchange of two opposites. Suddenly, life has new meaning, to quote Burzum's amazing song Dunkelheit. Paganism is not about the worship of ashes, it's about the preservation of fire. From an animistic view, we see that all things have life force, they are alive. And there's a balance in how this life force, this megin, flows through nature. It's only by giving, showing our goodwill, communicating and bargaining with our surroundings, that we can tap into and use that energy of other things. Magic is all about building fruitful relations. If I do this for you, you'll give me that. We see reciprocity in nature in the form of balance. There's an ebb and flow to this life. There are good times and bad times. There's night and day, light and darkness, summer and winter. Growth is balanced by decay. Birth is balanced by death. The gain of one thing entails the loss of another. That's how equilibrium is maintained. And this is the meaning of offering. To give, to get. This natural reciprocity is found throughout Indo-European spirituality and societies. To gain wisdom from Mimir's well, Odin had to sacrifice an eye. He gave up part of his physical sight in order to gain inner sight and opening the third eye. In ancient times, this golden principle often manifested as the sacred rule of hospitality and exchange. In Greece, it was called xenia, and in Rome, hospitium. This guest and host relation was regarded as a sacred obligation and was protected by the gods. In Greece, your hospitality honored Zeus Xenios and Athena Xenia. Xenos means stranger. In Rome, it was overlooked by Jupiter Hospitalis. A guest under your roof was to be protected, and there were rituals of giving and accepting hospitality, and it was regarded as a holy exchange. The stranger, or xenos, who receives hospitality is bound to the host, who provides hospitality and help. This means that once the guest and host engage in xenia, they participate in a reciprocal relationship where they each become a xenos, and thus both are bound to certain obligations. This natural Gosti principle is found in ancient myths too. Not the least, it's mentioned several times in Homer's Odyssey and Iliad. The Trojan War itself resulted from a violation of Xenia or Gosti. Paris was a guest of Menelaus, but seriously broke the bounds of Gosti when he abducted his host's wife Helen. Well, by doing that, I'd say that he broke one or two other rules too. And therefore, the Acadians were required by duty to Zeus to avenge this transgression, since by violating Xenia, it was also an insult to Zeus, or Jupiter, or Tiwaz. When Odysseus is shipwrecked, it's because of these obligations of the host towards the stranger that Princess Nausicaa and her maids come to his aid. They welcome him to the palace, bathe and feed him, and even offer to bring him back to his homeland, but only if he in return tells them the whole story of his adventures. This story doesn't tell how many rules Nausicaa and her maids broke that time, but considering her mother is Arete, the principle of always excelling that I brought up last time, I'm sure she did a very good job. When Odysseus returns home to Ithaca, disguised as a beggar, it is his friend the shepherd Eumaios who, without recognizing him, gladly welcomes him as his guest. And in the middle of battle, Hector talks to Ajax about exchanging presents so that people will remember them for dropping their hatred and becoming friends. This is how powerful friendship was seen in the ancient world. In India, through its Vedic history, we obviously see a very strong culture of hospitality and reciprocity. The warriors of the second function of Vedic society, the Kshatriya, were true leaders who put others before themselves. A true leader sacrifices him or herself, shows generosity, and offers their time, energy, blood, sweat, and tears for others. Not the least should they support those who have chosen the spiritual path and who don't have as much material wealth. This is also why we see the ring giver phenomenon in all Indo-European societies. The king or overlord provides the warriors with everything they need. The warriors then gives quote-unquote rings, of course meaning assets, to those who need it for their subsistence. All really civilized cultures had epics, because they served as an example of what true heroism means, self-sacrifice. To put your close ones in the first room, to be selfless and sacrifice yourself to make sure others are safe and can thrive. In return, the hero gets respect, loyalty, and the love of his family and people. He also gets the smile of the gods. He gets Hamingja. When it comes to hospitality, In India, or at least what's left of traditional India, you can also just basically step into someone's home as a stranger and expect to be taken care of. This phenomenon is called Atiti Devo Bhava, meaning that a guest is equivalent to a god. The guest is a manifestation of the divine and should be revered with the same respect. In the last episode, I mentioned that the Sanskrit way of saying hello, namaste, means that the divine in me bows to the divine in you, and it comes from the same philosophy. Since the person standing before you may be a god, we should treat everyone with great kindness and generosity. And if it's not a god, it's the divine in someone else you're meeting, so act with honor, respect, and arete. Both the reciprocal sacrifice and prayer traditions of prasada, the gifts that we give to the gods and get back as consecrated blessings in the god's name, and darshan, the permission to see or visit the divine after you've done your duty, are both Vedic, and we see them in all the pagan branches. I'll come back to that soon. We have seen the primordial Manu sacrificing his twin brother Yemo, and by balancing life with death, he is creating the manifest world. To sacrifice is symbolically to kill, to bring chaos into cosmos. As a result of this entry of chaos, the world becomes ordered. With death entering the world, the ritual of sacrifice is instituted. The understanding of the nature of life and death and their relationship is the deep meaning of the Indo-European myth of Manu and Yemo. Just as the first sacrifice was the means by which the world was ordered, so our own sacrifices ensure the continuation of the world. Our sacrifice is a repetition of the cosmogony, and by it we ensure the continued newness of creation. With offerings, we create the world every day. We contribute to the process by actions, especially ritual ones, designed to bring in the creative water without threatening the cosmos. Our goal is to live by the chartus, the structure of the cosmos, and thereby help maintaining it. When we understand that myth, both sacrifice and even our own deaths become creative acts. The entrance of death through a sacrifice makes death sacred. Paganism isn't binary and linear. Death too is constructive. It feeds chaos that can then feed order. This is an honorable death. Paganism is action rather than belief, and it's a sacrificial ideology, and to strive to unite with the divine is all about offering, ritualistically, physically, affectionately, emotionally, spiritually, lovingly. If you don't give of yourself, you can never be part of the divine. And this is the reason we sacrifice and pray, to be the hosts of the cosmic creation again and again. In return, we are blessed with eternal souls, the force of life, and the possibility to be a part of the beauty of Chartus. The most common Hindu worship is called Puja. Puja means offering a flower, something beautiful, that is. Puja is an act of hosting the gods or ancestors to appease them. They are invited to the home, welcomed, offered food and drinks, fruit, flowers, and incense, like a guest of honor. Earlier, I also mentioned prasada. It's basically a reward, and it takes place after the puja. Prasada literally means sitting close to or sitting opposite to. When we've invited the gods to eat and drink, and they've had their share of their eatables, they mainly take the spiritual part of what's been served. They then invite us to eat with them. What's been offered to the gods has now been consecrated and blessed by them, and we can take part of that blessing. We are ritually having dinner with the divine. The gods reciprocate our invitation, and something physical has now become spiritual, and we can benefit from that spiritual part. Already in the beginning of our history, when a sacrifice was performed, some of the animal or food was burned to go to the gods, and then the people who offered it ate the rest. The sacrifice became a shared meal, where the people served as hosts and the gods as guests. This would be the same as pouring a libation, saying cheers and then taking a sip. I also mentioned the Vedic tradition of darshan. Darshan means to see, sight or insight of the divine. When we are following our dharma, when we do our duty and give offerings, we are then allowed to visit the divine. This is how all ritual used to be understood. When you give of yourself, you can then go visit the divine and benefit from it. You can say that we get darshan, when we get a sight of or get to experience the divine. When we've given it something it wants, we can then go to visit it and see the divine. The Norse and Germanics worship by going to specific places, trees, forests, rocks, hills or rivers, to visit and see the god and give offerings in exchange for blessings and advice. The experience is considered to be reciprocal since the gods love to see us and when we come to meet them. The ceremonies of ancient Greece and Rome took place outside, in front of the temple. The doors were opened to reveal the divine statues, and the deity could see and monitor the ritual, and the worshippers could see the god. Interestingly enough, darshan has the same meaning as our word theory. Theory stems from the Greek roots theon, the divine, and orao, I see. So to have a theory meant that you had had a glimpse of the ultimate truth and could present it to others. This is the origin of the sacred nature of hospitality. By sacrificing, we take part in the way of nature. Just like there's a mystery in the natural order of eating and being eaten, there's a mystery in the natural dynamic of giving and receiving gifts. The same hands that reach out to give also reach out to receive. We enter into this reciprocal relationship for the divine to become active in our lives. The most basic of rituals is the offering, a gift from our world to the other. Through offerings, we reach out to the gods, and in response, the gods reach back. Through offerings, we establish and maintain a reciprocal relationship of hospitality with the gods. Sometimes we are hosts, and sometimes we are the guests. The establishment and continual strengthening of this bond are the main purposes of our rituals. We are bound to the gods through the giving of gifts and the receiving of blessings. This is the origin of the Indo-European version of sacrifice. This is also why we pray to the gods. Take friends and family as an example. We don't just take for granted that they automatically know what we feel and want. We don't assume that our grandparents know that we are grateful for the birthday gift they sent us without thanking them or sending a card. And if your niece wins a football tournament, do you call her and say, "Congratulations, well done"? Or do you decide that her own sense of self-accomplishment is enough? The gods definitely deserve as much attention as your niece and grandparents. They need to be invited into our lives. We should call them and tell them that we are thinking of them. we offer to the gods, we invite them into our lives as their hosts. The deities are obviously seen as superior and are therefore expected to return more than what we've offered. So in return, they give us prosperity, health, success, etc. But why do the gods even want material gifts from us? Why aren't they satisfied with prayer and sincere hearts? Because there's no sharp line between the material and the spiritual. They belong to each other, like feminine and masculine, like Shiva and Shakti. By asking for material offerings, the gods remind us that the material is sacred too. An offering is an act of completion. We get so many blessings from the gods. Just take a look around you. If you just keep all your things, the flow ends with you, and we'd create an interruption in the natural rhythm of the world, a dead end to the flow of the universe. But there are no dead ends in nature. The gods wouldn't allow it. There will be no interruptions of their cycles. To be pagan, you have to live the way the gods want us to live. And we should give generously of what we have, to each other and to the gods. And when we make offerings, we tell the gods that we understand this principle. Even if we try to hold on tightly to our possessions, in the end we will of course lose them. We will die, and they will go to others. Even death itself is a sacrifice. There's an old Greek proverb saying that a society grows great when old people plant trees in whose shadow they shall never sit. Some might say, but what's the point of planting those trees if you can't enjoy them yourself? Well, yeah, that's exactly the thing to ask if you don't understand that time isn't linear and that both your actions and your life itself is a gift to others and to the Chartus. That your soul lives on and will be rewarded later. In fact, the actions with the most Hamingja and Megin are those you do selflessly and without anyone else knowing of them. If you've really put your soul into something, and you dare giving it away, despite all the time, energy and money you've spent on it, then that object or gift is also filled with tremendous amounts of Megin, meaning that in the long run you will also get a lot back. Sometimes it costs a lot to invest, because you don't know the outcome of it. It takes courage, and we know that the gods favor the bold. And speaking of trees, we should remember that the tree takes to be able to give. And so do we. We have to have something to give to actually give. We need nutrition to actually live and act. Many of us who are brought up in a Judeo-Christian society might think, what? Am I going to take? Isn't that selfish? And here's the thing. Yes, it is selfish. You need to unlearn that fear of taking. Paganism wants you to grow and to be strong. It wants you to be everything but a self-effacing and non-existent shadow creature. It wants you to shine like the sun. And to give off something, you gotta have something. And then you're gonna be selfless. Then you're gonna give yourself to others, make them grow. First you're gonna be the Atman, your true self. Find it and strengthen it, make it beautiful, and then you're gonna give that Atman to the Brahman, all the rest of us. It's first when you've learned to be a guest, to nourish yourself at the table, that you can then become the host. And the more you give, the more you are the host, the more you'll once again become the guest out of people's appreciation. The rune Gebo, or Givu in Anglo-Saxon, means gift or to give. It represents reciprocity and the Gosti principle. We are eternally indebted to each other. Giving gifts and being the host is supposed to be debt of gratitude. We're supposed to be dependent of each other, because we're all sitting in the same tree, and you shouldn't saw off the branch you're sitting on, to joke a bit. And the god Forseti, in the Anglo-Saxon world sometimes called Wade, is a god of mediation, justice, and reconciliation. His name means president, or he who has the front seat or chair in the court. Seeking justice, fairness, and equal exchange in his court, he requires that you give out equally what you've gotten back. If a decision in life goes your way, and you've benefited from it, then you are to give to others the same amount of fortune and goodness as what you have received. Once again, it's only by doing your dharma and by giving that you will end up in the front seat, the presidency. Gosti is the institutionalized relationship rooted in generosity, gift exchange, and reciprocity. It's this that binds us together. If we are to establish a relationship, we must take part in reciprocity. It's such an important principle that the very origins of even having specific dining rooms, living rooms, and guest rooms in architecture still today actually comes from the ancient worldview. To live in accord with Chartus, we should act generously and do what's best for our surroundings. We should always have the door to our hearts and homes open. Because a host who performs poorly will blind themselves to the light of the gods. And nothing comes for free. There's no such thing as a free lunch. Be the host and you will become the guest. And see the balance between bidya and blota, between praying and offering. Ask yourself, what am I willing to do to get this? What am I really asking for, and what am I willing to pay? What am I willing to sacrifice into the fire? Because where there's ash, there's honor. Before I go, I want to say that if you're seeking more knowledge about Indo-European spirituality and want to be in contact with like-minded people, you're welcome to join our Discord server, Hamingja Foundation. You'll find the link on the contact page on our website, hamingja.foundation. I want to thank you for listening. Make sure to subscribe so you increase your Hamingja straight away. You will find more information about the podcast and the foundation on hamingja.foundation. You'll also find us on Instagram, Discord and YouTube, and more platforms will follow. Feel free to contact us if you have questions, requests or need guidance. I hope to hear from you soon and that you will tune in next time. And until then, seek not the religion of your ancestors. Seek what your ancestors sought.